made sure Western countries are taking the utmost efforts to make sure that there is a tactical defeat of Russia on the field. But we have made sure that our aim is denazification and demilitarization of Ukraine. But as far as demilitarization is concerned, soon Ukraine will stop actually using its own equipment. Everybody knows what they're using, and it's all brought in from outside. But I think that the Ukrainian armed forces has no chances at all. I have no doubt about that at all. Thank you very much.
Well, to discuss that, I'm joined now by our Moscow correspondent Diana Magnay and defence and security analyst Professor Michael Clarke. Welcome again to you both. Diana, for those people who might not be across what this event is, what is this St Petersburg Forum?
Well, it's the main kind of economic showcase moment for Russia every year. It's something that the Kremlin puts a lot of store in and invites a lot of international guests to try and drum up business, that kind of thing. He spoke for 1 hour, 22 minutes on economic matters. And then in the Q&A, things took a slightly different turn. And he said what you just heard about the Ukrainian counteroffensive, that it essentially stood no chance of succeeding. And then, bearing in mind this is an economic forum, something really quite bizarre happened in that he decided to play a piece of really horrific footage from World War II, essentially talking about, it was sort of pogroms of Jewish people in Ukraine by Bandera, who is sort of his bugbear in Ukraine, and saying, we are obliged to fight against a country that still protects these kind of people. I mean, bearing in mind this is an economic forum, that was a very weird twist and clearly choreographed in advance.
Yeah, very strange, and particularly, I guess, for us, for the sort of international media, we were watching really with a view on what he might say about Ukraine. Were you surprised by that, Michael?
Surprised by how far it went. It was the Baba Yar massacre, which is this awful massacre. It was as graphic as you like, and he was talking about the fact that, you know, this shows what we're up against. We're up against the same old Nazis, and that Zelensky isn't really a proper Jew. They used to call him the little Jew, because, you know, when he was making fun of them before he became president, when he was just a comedian. And he's not a proper Jew anyway, he's not representative of the Jewish communities. They got into the Semitic issue as well. And it was wildly abusive. And again, it's part of Putin's message that this isn't really about the conquest of Ukraine. This is about cleansing Ukraine of the Nazis, who are led by the Nazis in Europe, who are led by the imperialists in America, and that we, Russia, are standing for civilization. He's made this whole war into a war for the future of civilization, with Russia as the centre point. And it's an alternative reality to the one the rest of us live in.
And Diana, you're just back from Russia. Is that how it's being taken in Russia by the people?
Well, I think you hear a lot of people saying, oh, well, they're Nazis over there in Ukraine, we've got to get the Nazis. That has resonated, definitely. And it's all built on this narrative of World War II, which Putin, ever since he really came to power, has really drummed home. And so it's a very militarized society. So this sort of narrative, you know, sits well, especially when you start hearing it blurted out in kind of every conference and every opportunity he has.
And the Russian people worry about war far more than anybody does in the West. They constantly worry about war because they suffered so badly, 20 million deaths in the Second World War, which is trivial compared to our death toll. And they worry about nuclear war much more than we stopped worrying about nuclear war, except as an abstract concept a long time ago. But in Russian society, the prospect of war and the prospect of a nuclear war never seems all that far away. And it's a sort of a paranoia which it's easy for the Putin regime to play on.
And has fed, I think, yeah.
Yeah.
But given, as you said, that it was an economic forum, he was very upbeat about the Russian economy. He said in April the GDP grew 3.3% in annual terms. We're among the leading economies of the world. I mean, all stuff we would expect him to say, that he'd responsible, balanced monetary policy. On questions like the sanctions and on foreign businesses leaving Russia, how was he able to try and present Russia in a good place right now?
Because economically it is doing okay. And actually, if you walk around Moscow, you do see a lot of Western businesses still operating. And now you see, for example, Inditex, who runs Zara, things like that, they've opened a whole lot of new branches there under Russian names, probably with goods that are produced in Russia. There is still a lot of business, Western business in Russia, which is, you know, I didn't expect that when the war began, but it is still there. And it has encouraged some sort of domestic private enterprise too, which he was really trying to emphasize today. Yeah, I mean, he obviously has to put a pretty brave spin on this kind of thing, but I think he and we have all been surprised at how the economy has managed to fare over the last 15 months.